The first of the browsers we're going to look at is Internet Explorer. Now, Internet Explorer has built-in debugging tools that we're going to look at in a minute. These tools have been available since Internet Explorer 7, so they exist in Internet Explorer 7, 8, 9, and 10 by default. If you need to test against earlier versions of Internet Explorer, for quite a while, I believe since Internet Explorer 5, these tools were available as a toolbar that you could add. To get to these, we're just going to look at the properties. I'm running Internet Explorer 10 here, but this would be pretty much the same for Internet Explorer 7 and above. One of the options in the menu here is the F12 developer tools. That means that we can just hit the F12 function key and show them as well. In here, you'll see a common pattern of starting the development tools by docking them on the bottom of the browser. If you have a large monitor or even multiple monitors, sometimes it's useful to actually pop it out as a separate window and put it in different places. I find leaving it docked to the bottom for the debugging experience on a single monitor works pretty well. These debugging tools work in a pretty simple way. There's a file menu for the debugging tools that allows you to change certain things, and then there's a list of tabs here on the bottom that we'll look at very briefly to allow you to look at different parts of what the web experience is. Now, a couple things that are specific to Internet Explorer I want to point out first is the ability to change the browser mode so you can see how your application is going to look in different rendering engines. So if we want to see how this page will look in Internet Explorer 9, or even go way back to Internet Explorer 7 to see how the different rendering engines and different versions of HTML are going to look. This can be pretty useful for figuring out exactly how you want your designs to look that will work in different versions of different browsers. So the tabs down here really break apart the different experiences of debugging your individual web project. HTML, which is the first one here, really allows us to look at the nature of what is the document as the browser is viewing it. Now, one of the things to notice about most of these tools is when you're looking at the HTML tab, you're really looking at what the browser has interpreted is the DOM. It's not really the HTML itself, but the HTML DOM that the browser has interpreted your web project to look like. It also supports a very useful function of being able to select element by click. And by selecting this button, we can actually walk through and we can see that there's kind of a blue outline as we walk through different elements to be able to pick them. And when we click on it, it moves us to that part of the DOM so we can see it. The HTML tab here shows the element we picked and then shows the style. For each element on the left-hand side, there's going to be corresponding ways to look at that information. There's also a CSS tab to be able to look at the CSS on a project, a console, and this console will show errors as this is showing a warning for us, or even allow you to do things like actually type in JavaScript that would be valid on the page. So if we're looking for the body tag, we can go ahead and just type in JavaScript and it will work. In this case, we typed $body, and we're able to get the body element, and it just dumped out some information about the body for us to look at. Script tag is going to allow us to not only look at the script that is available in your project, but set breakpoints and walk through the code as well. You spend quite a lot of time in here when you're talking about the JavaScript experience. And then the last two are our profiler, which will allow you to see the performance aspects of your application, as well as networking to be able to see what network calls are being made. Now, when we talk about networking, we're talking about more than just AJAX calls or calls out to web services. This is going to talk about each of the elements on the page that is actually loaded. For example, if I start capturing and refresh the page, we can see that there's quite a lot involved in getting this individual page loaded because we have not only the page, the CSS elements, the JavaScript files, etc. being shown, but we're actually doing things like getting all of the images from Xbox.com and such. So let's head over to Chrome and see what those tools look like.